Hey everybody, it's Eric live alongside Rod with some breaking news in the MSU recruiting front. Before we start, a quick word of thanks to all of you who watch and listen to the show. If you haven't subscribed yet on your podcast player, please do so. If you're on YouTube, please subscribe. Also hit the notification bell. That allows you to know right away when we have new videos that come out. You can follow live and interact if you want. Also make sure that with the YouTube, because we go live here and there afterwards, so after some breaking news or something, or certainly after post game. So you want to definitely not miss those. Okay, Rod. So we're going to talk about MSU had an official visit, or not had an official visit, but got a commitment from Carlos Medlock Jr., who I'm honestly not sure. I think we talked about him before, but things have sort of skyrocketed for the young man in the last few months, probably. And so just briefly, 6 foot point guard who played at Wayne Memorial High School, lost to East Lansing in the D1 state title this year, and will be playing his senior season, 25-26 season at Link Academy in Missouri.
Yeah, we didn't talk about him in our first recruiting
That's what I
episode.
thought
I
so.
think
Yeah.
and at that point he didn't have an offer. Um, but it's a funny thing because you can you can describe his recruitment as both very quick and not so quick because once Michigan State offered, I think they offered. I have to go back. I want to say it was the beginning of June, maybe late May.
It seems like not long ago,
They were the
like two
first
months or
high
something.
major to offer
Hmm.
him. Subsequently, he's had offers from Michigan, Tennessee, Creighton, Iowa, Oklahoma State. I'm sure I'm missing a couple. And it was
Yeah.
almost certainly going to continue if it went on for a while. But MSU had been recruiting him. I do recall he took an unofficial late in the regular season to MSU. So he had been, I think he had multiple trips actually to campus. So he had been around the program. He had been somebody they had been watching and recruiting even prior to offering for a while. And big get. We'll start with that. And I would caution listeners if you're just kind of dialing into who Carlos Medlock Jr. is right now, and you're looking around the internet for rankings, disregard everything you're seeing because they're not updated by all accounts. And I mean it is a universal opinion, it seems. He has had an unreal last 3 months, 2, 3 months
Hmm.
in AAU. And that has led to all those high major offers I just mentioned. And it will in turn cause his recruiting ranking to skyrocket. I'm under the
Right.
impression that it would not be any kind of surprise to see him in the consensus top 50 by the end of the summer. He's been
So
that
what is
good.
5 star like? Look, is it top 25 or top 50?
It depends on the year, but no, usually 5 star doesn't go any deeper than maybe 15, maybe
Okay.
10.
So it's like
So
four
he's not
star
going to be
territory, I see.
he's
Yeah.
not going to be in that category, but he's going to be in the higher 4 star category. I think that's a pretty safe assumption. So you mentioned he played high school basketball at Wayne Memorial, which is also the alma mater of MSU basketball strength and conditioning coach Lorenzo Guess, who was the last basketball player Michigan State had from that high school. He's going to play his senior year at Link Academy in Missouri, which is a prep school, plays on that circuit. So it would not be surprising to see Carlos Medlock end up on ESPN a time or two or three
Hmm.
this coming winter, because I would imagine Link Academy will be on TV. They're the type of program that is. And so you'll get a chance to see him, even though it's disappointing for MSU fans, I'm sure, to not be able to watch him play his senior year here in the Detroit area. I think if he had stayed at Wayne, they probably would have been the favorite to win it this year. So it's unfortunate for them for sure. But I get it from his perspective. And I think when he made that decision, he didn't yet have all of these high major offers in hand. So I
Right.
think part of it was perhaps, hey, if I don't quite get to where I think I want to be from a recruiting perspective, playing at a program like that with that kind of exposure and those kind of opportunities to go up against the best of the best might make the difference. I still think
Yeah.
it's not a bad thing for him in his preparation for college. He's going to be playing a tougher schedule than he would have at Wayne. He's going to get used to being away from home, more so even than his time at MSU will be, because it's a further distance. And, so it's not all bad by any means. Uh, I mentioned he really the view of him really grew during this AAU season that's just basically wrapped up in the last week or so. 21.1 points per game for Phenom United, which is an Ohio-based Adidas program. He was one of the top 5 scorers on that circuit. So that gives you a sense of what he can do offensively. Other numbers, and again, this is just Adidas 3 stripes circuit numbers, but they're similar with the kinds of things he did in high school. He shot 47, 36, 79,
Hmm.
averaged 3 assists per game, and this is something I like. He averaged 5.5 free throw attempts per game.
Right. You love that.
Yeah, so what it tells you is he's not just a guy who's going to live on the perimeter. He's active in terms of getting to the basket. He's a good finisher. He's got some toughness to him, and he can draw fouls, and then he'll convert those free throw attempts when he gets them. I would say, and I don't want to take this too far, but if you're looking for stylistic comparisons with MSU players of the past, I would lean maybe a little more toward guys like Kalen Lucas, Keith Appling, as opposed to, say, Jeremy Fears.
Yeah.
Carlos Medlock is a scoring lead guard. He can run an offense, good passer, good instincts that way, and I think he'll continue to get better, but he is wired to score the way that a guy like Kalen Lucas was. And he kind of his body kind of reminds me of Kalen a little bit too when I've watched him on video. And even late last year, the one time I got to see Wayne Memorial play, he's not big, obviously, at about 6 feet tall.
Yeah.
But if you remember, Kalen was shorter, but he was I don't want to say stocky because it wasn't that, but he had a good frame to him that allowed him to take contact and finish through it
Yeah.
at the basket,
You
for
remember that a
example.
lot. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Medlock's kind of got that build to him when I've watched him, or at least is on his way to that. So a lot of things to like. I mean, there's no doubt about it. And I think that you've really got to be impressed with what he's done, because he was not a guy that was getting immense amounts of hype when he was 13. I'm talking about on a national
Right.
level.
Yeah.
People
Yeah.
in the
Yeah.
state of Michigan knew who he was. I believe he was on the varsity and as a starter from his freshman year at Wayne. So, going to be a 4-year starting guard in high school when he's done at Link. But kind of earned it. Didn't
Hmm.
didn't come with a huge reputation, just steadily got better and better and better. And obviously this year made the most of his opportunities on the Adidas circuit. And here we are. Uh, Couple interesting things I've heard about this one. One is that, uh, and we saw a recruitment last year, if you remember Trey McKinney, where I think Tom Izzo and Michigan State's presence got them in that recruitment to an extent, even though the kid's father was dead set against him playing at Michigan State, was a Michigan
Right.
slappy from way back, all that. So that did demonstrate Izzo's presence just to be in it. But he probably wasn't ever going to be able to overcome that element. And if Dusty May hadn't come in and kind of righted the ship enough to make them feel comfortable with committing to Michigan, which I think was always the preference, I suspect Trey McKinney probably would have gone out of state rather than play at MSU. And that kind of
Sure.
stings a little bit, I think, for MSU fans when and certainly for Tom Izzo too, when it's a state of Michigan kid. You're like, we're accustomed to getting most of those that we want, and frankly should, because that's the status of the coach. That's the status of the program. Well,
Right.
it appears that for Carlos Medlock Jr., all those things mattered. Tom Izzo, the aura of Michigan State, him being an in-state kid, all of that mattered and was a big part of the success. Michigan offered literally the day after Michigan State did, but my
Right. Yeah.
understanding
Right.
is I talked about how even before he got offered, MSU was laying groundwork with him. Michigan did not do that, not in the same way.
Yeah.
So they got their asses kicked. again. Um, and and then the other thing is my friend uh Nils, Amy, goes by Amy on the well, Texas Top 100 is the moniker now on the Spartan Mag board. But Nils is a very plugged in guy in certain aspects of the sport and with certain guys on the Michigan State staff. And he mentioned this evening that the word is Saudi Washington was really instrumental
Hmm.
in this recruitment. So that's worth noting. I think, and Sadi's only been on staff obviously through two cycles of this. I don't
Right.
think he was the primary on either of the guys they got last year. I believe it was Doug Wojcik on both of those guys, if I remember correctly. But he apparently was the primary on Carlos Medlock. So uh, that's a that's a nice thing to hear and a feather in his cap. And not surprised. I mean, we had him on the podcast not too long ago,
Yeah.
and I don't know about you, my impression was that's the first time I've gotten a chance to talk to him, and you just have the impression you're dealing with a very honest, straight shooting kind of guy, and that can play with the right kid, and it seems that
Sure.
Carlos Medlock is the right kind of kid.
I wonder if that's like what Garland was like back in the day when he was younger. I think that's all those
Yeah, the
seems
the
maybe a
the
little bit.
difference is that I don't think Coach Garland was ever in an off. You remember in his era, most of it at least, there were stricter rules in place as
Yeah.
to how many assistants. They
Sure.
were restricted to two assistants on the road, and I don't know that he was ever a guy that was on the road. But
Okay.
I get your point, and I
Like
and I
personality wise and stuff. Yeah. I feel like that.
yeah,
Yeah.
and I think that's just, when we talked to him, I just got the sense that, yeah, this is a guy who's not going to play any games. He's going to tell you how he thinks it is,
Yeah.
how he sees it, and you're going to know where you stand. And it seems like that played well with Carlos Medlock, and obviously Tom Izzo, as always, the closer on these things, and that's a big deal. So this is a great start to the 26 class. Now, I will admit when I first saw him get the offer, I was a little bit surprised, not because I didn't think he was good enough. He proved
Right.
that last season in high school that he was
Yeah.
of that level. But you just in this day and age where kids are so conscious about, who else is there and have the ability to leave on a dime, all of that
Yep.
stuff. You look at MSU this season, both of the point guards are sophomores.
Right.
And there's no guarantee that Jeremy Fears and Ugachukwu are here even next year, but I would say there's a stronger chance of that happening at Michigan State than most places that they'll
Sure.
hang around. And so to me, I wondered, well, point guard really doesn't seem to be like a huge need. But the more I thought about it and the more you looked at what he was doing this season in AAU, I think it just came down. He's too good
Yeah.
to not bring on. And you figure
Right.
that everything will sort itself out. So, one option is that, might Carlos Medlock be capable of playing more of a Tyson Walker role early on? Maybe. I mean, he's certainly a shooter. He's got that kind of handle and that kind of scorer's mentality. So I guess you wouldn't rule that out. There's also the possibility that Azugu develops if his shot can continue to improve, and he's already been talking about it. We're going to get a chance, hopefully, to talk to him next week, so we'll ask him about it. But the sense I've had reading and hearing other interviews with him is that he would like to develop his shot to the point that he can contend for off-ball minutes as well. So if that
Right.
happens,
Right.
that loosens things up also. So the more I thought about it and kind of played all this out, the more it made sense. But just in terms of, look, one you can never go wrong by having point guards, you know. That's I was just writing up a preview for a Big Ten team I won't name, that we're going to be recording in the near future. And you'll know who it is when I get to it because I'm going to talk about it. But uh, it's amazing to me. This team seems to have assembled a fair amount of talent, but they don't have a pure point guard. They don't have a true point guard on the roster. It's like in an era where we have the portal, and this is a program that uses the portal pretty liberally. It's like, how is there any excuse for that? So
Yeah.
Michigan State kind of cutting back the other direction. Medlock definitely a guy that does cut against the narrative we had going this year with MSU recruiting size. He doesn't bring that, but boy, he brings everything else. So
Yeah.
I think it's a great kickoff to the 26 class. Now you've got a guy who can recruit for you, which is always useful. And you know you've got that one in the bank. But honestly, this is just the start of what it really is starting to feel to me like this is going to be a very good class. I don't know that it's going to have, the two McDonald's All-Americans that the 23 class had, but this is going to be a very good group. And I think it's probably going to be at least three guys and maybe four. That's what I'd be betting on right now. But
Yeah.
they got one already banked. So that's a great
Yeah.
start.
And you imagine it's going to depend on sort of who's available, and you may say, oh, we're just going to stop at two, stop at three, or we can go all the way to four because we like all four. I think that's going to be a lot of what the recruiting is going to be like for Michigan State if they get the right a lot sort of mix of players and ones that they are very satisfied with. They'd rather do that than they're certainly not going to be settling as much as they might have in the past. If you could say that happened a whole lot at Michigan State, but sometimes maybe it would. You take a back
There have
hundred
been years
guy.
where they were operating, in the kind of pre-portal where they were operating in the late spring if they didn't get like
Right.
Julius Marble, for example. That
Yeah.
was one where they had to go late because they missed on a number of big men that they thought they were in great position to land, and it just didn't happen. So they ended up taking Julius. But yeah, they're not in that position now. But honestly, the more it goes, the more I'm convinced they're probably going to be on the bigger end of a class. I'd be surprised if it's only two.
Yeah.
I'm
Well,
really surprised at this point, honestly, if it's only
those
two.
who are watching YouTube obviously can see that I'm not in the normal studio. I'm doing this remote, which is why I kind of like weird connections a little bit. So I apologize for that. But I'm sitting here with my Nudge T-shirt I've worn all day. Fantastic apparel at Nudge Printing at nudgeprinting.com. 20% off as a listener to the show. Just type in Final Four when you go to the checkout. They have great things. If you have not yet signed up for the email list to get email notices from Gabe, they're always having sales. I think they had a backpack sale the other day. They got some jackets that are out now. Getting ready for football season is not too far away. So make sure you get all the information on that. Sign up on his website. Also, of course, you make any order, you'll get that as well. But check their stuff out. Fantastic. The best stuff. My family loves it. Also, the Squeegee Squad at Grand Rapids. If you need gutter work done, whether it's your home in or business in the east side of the state or the west side of the state, the brothers will take care of you. They do fantastic work. There's a great time of the year to get it done before fall. Get those leaf guards on so you don't have to do it later. I know you've been thinking about it. Just think about all the time you get up the ladders when it's kind of rainy, cold, and you're putting your hand in that wet gutter full of water and just, muck. Imagine how much better to be not to do that. So contact the brothers today. Go to the support page at tffinots.com/support. 10% off you mentioned Final Four when you get your estimate. And then also, of course, the Squeegee Squad of Grand Rapids, because you want to make sure your windows look nice, make sure they're pretty. They can also power wash your house. And again, this is a good time of the year to do this. Get this done so you don't have to do it. Go do something fun, go golfing, do whatever, just so you don't have to go and get on a ladder and clean out windows and things like that. Have these guys do what they do. Again, Troy's team do fantastic work. 15% off as a listener to the show. So another great deal. Go to the support page to get the estimate for that at tffinots.com/support. So the other thing I guess to talk about besides Carlos, and I apologize, my autocorrect got it, so the YouTube video is originally saying Carl, but it is Carlos. So he has not actually had his official visit, but there are a couple other players who you're looking at. This, I think, is sort of why you're thinking four is sort of like a number that's kind of sticking in your head, maybe, because we have with Julius Avent on the 30th of August, and then during Grind Week, Josiah Jervis, Quinn Costello, and then, of course, Carlos Medlock are visiting all the 5th of September. So that's all, 3-4 weeks away. Well, wait, no, I guess
Yeah.
it's September. It's like 6 weeks away,
Yeah. And
but not too
and
far. It's getting pretty close.
yes, and you can read into some of these things. Um, the fifth, when Medlock is making his visit and is joined by Jervis and Costello, That's grind week. So that's it's weekend of the Boston College football game at Spartan Stadium. And it's also grind week when, of
Hmm.
course, all the MSU pros and alums come back. That is
We should just assume they'll
traditionally,
sign, right? They'll commit that point.
well, you don't want to go that far. And certainly, look, like last year, they had Jalen Harrelson up for that, and he
Okay, yeah.
signed with Notre Dame. So it's not a lock, but it's a big deal. Uh, we may have talked about it on the podcast, but there was an interview this earlier this summer with Jason and Jace Richardson. And Jason Richardson was talking about how for a long time he really thought that Jace was going to end up at Alabama, which was actually the word that was out there for quite a while in that recruitment. It did not seem like Michigan State was the likely landing spot for Jace. But it went on, and Michigan State got in there more thoroughly. And then they were trying to figure out visit dates. And Alabama had originally had him for the week of grind week, and then they wanted to move it. I think it was a week earlier. And that meant that Jace was free to go to grind week. And Jason said he told the Alabama coaches, you let him go to grind week, it's over. You're losing him. And that's exactly what happened. Um, obviously, the guys that are likely to be there, the Travis Waltons, the Draymond Greens, the Jaron Jacksons, Xavier Tillman, all these guys, more, on and on and on, all these guys. And it really is between that and the football game. And, it's early in the school year at
Weather's
MSU.
nice.
The
Yeah.
weather's generally nice. It all lines up to be a situation where MSU's program can show itself off to maximum effect. And so I think you take that seriously both ways. You take it seriously in terms of, well, what's the likelihood they may be able to land this kid? But it also tells you something about the way that MSU is prioritizing guys, you know? Because if they've got you
Hmm.
there on that weekend, that's a pretty good indicator that they're very, very serious. Now,
Yeah.
MSU's recruiting net does not stop at these four guys. And I will not be surprised at all to see more official visits lined up as the next several days or maybe couple weeks unfold as we get into maybe early August. There are a lot of guys, there are actually too many to name. They just showed up on, there's a big man, Latrell Almond, who's really the only big man left on their board, who just announced a top nine, and MSU still in there. I don't think they're likely to get him, but who knows? Maybe they'll get a visit. You can never tell. But there's a lot of guys that they're still recruiting with some level of intensity. Very good players, and they've just offered a couple guys this week, so they're not stopping. But I think it's safe to say these guys, these four guys, counting Medlock, are very high on the priority list. So just to go over them, because we haven't talked about all these guys in great detail. Julius Avant, we have. He's a 6'8", I would say combo forward, sort of in the way that a Raymar Morgan was, but definitely capable of playing the four in the modern game. Has had a very good EYBL season. Um, and he's someone that I think there's generally been a feeling is very likely to end up at Michigan State. I'm not going to say it's a lock, but there's been a feeling along those lines for a while. So he's actually coming in first. He's the week before
Right.
grind
In
week. I
August.
don't know
Yeah.
if that's a scheduling conflict or reflective of something else, but it would not. He announced two other visits. The next one after MSU is Penn State, and then I can't remember who the third one was, but I won't be surprised if that one happens fast. That's just a gut feeling. And he would be a very good get. Actually, in some ways, maybe similar to Cam Ward in terms of the size, maybe not quite as big, given that we think Cam's about 7'2" now, I guess. But but anyway, um, but similar in terms of that versatility, that ability to help you in a number of different ways. Then grind week, we have Carlos Medlock, of course, but we have Josiah Jervis, who is a 6'5" wing from Long Island, from the New York City area. And the thing that all three guys who are scheduled right now for grind week have in common is all three of them have just exploded in terms of their national standing this AAU season. All three of them fit that mold. Jervis has been sensational. He was the best player on the team that finished runner up at Peach Jam and is just built to be a wing for Tom Izzo. Not a Cohen Carr level athlete, but a good athlete, good shooter, strong, tough, can handle a bit, just got a lot of elements you like. And then Quinn Costello, uh, at least as much as Medlock, just exploded. He was having a good AAU season, but then he went to a couple camps. He was MVP of the Pangos camp, which going back a few years, that's where Jackson Kohler's recruitment really exploded. He was also MVP of that camp, as was Quinn Costello. And it was that. And then shortly thereafter, the NBA Players Association has a top 100 camp, and Quinn Costello just lit it up at that camp. And all of a sudden, you saw a slew of offers come in from him after that camp, and the attention has not slowed down since then. So, Quinn Costello, 6'10, very thin. He will need work in the weight room. There's no two ways about it. But very skilled, very good shooter with the potential to get, he's a good shooter with the potential to become very good, I think, over time. And he's fluid. I was in a dialogue the other day with somebody who was kind of comparing him a little bit to Xavier Booker, except he said he wasn't quite as good athletically. Well, he's not quite the athlete Booker was, but I actually think his handle and the fluidity he plays with is a little better than Xavier's
Mm-hmm.
was. Like he's a guy you see him with the ball in his hands. If somebody's playing up on him, crowding him on the line, I think he's a guy that in time is going to be able to just go past people. So 6'10, but with some real versatility. My
Take that.
read, my read on it is, MSU can win without a great shooter at the four. I think that was true last year. It took until toward the end of the season for Jackson Kohler to really give them production, right? Most of the
Right.
season, they went without that at that position. And Izzo's done that before, but I think given his druthers, he prefers to have a four-man who can stretch the floor. He was doing that before it came in vogue
Right.
in
Right.
college basketball. You go all the way back to AJ Granger, and
Mm-hmm.
he had that element on his team. So my read of the Costello recruitment is, at least in part, he's a guy who they think can really do that. And Tom Izzo would like to have that element again in his offense. Now, I think he's going to have it this year with an improved Jackson Kohler. And maybe, we talked about the Moneyball bit the other day with Cam Ward, where you felt his shot really looked good. I think those two
Yeah.
guys are going to be able to give them some of that. But Costello is another step in that direction. And I think that's one of the reasons why he's been prioritized.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll wrap it up there. We're going to have a lot more stuff, as Rod alluded to. We got some player interviews coming up. We hope we're trying to get them scheduled still, and some more summer content. And then the previews begin, and then the season begins. They announced, I think, the first exhibition game against UConn I think they're playing at UConn, right? Or I know
They
it's
are,
not
yeah.
at least at the
We should talk
Breslin.
about that for just a second. So they announced a 2-year deal, home and home. First one is this October 28th, I believe, and it's in stores. I assume it's in
And I assume
stores.
that's first, and then they'll have one at the Breslin after
East
that, is
Lansing
my
next
guess.
year.
But I
East
But I mean,
Lansing
they'll have
next
a
year.
second exhibition game in East Lansing this season,
Oh yeah, like a
probably at
D2
home.
opponent or something.
Yeah,
Yeah.
someone. Yeah,
You would think they will announce a second one, yeah. But
yeah.
that's
So
let me tell you, I mean, we haven't spent any time talking about it yet.
Danny Hurley.
But the MSU schedule is ridiculous. And this is just one more. This one isn't going to count, but man, they are going to have a level check and then some with the kind of teams they're playing. And having UConn as an exhibition opponent certainly is another step in that direction. They are going to know even before the first real game kind of where they stand heading into things. They're going to get that. So it's a good thing from that perspective. The only negative is that the fan base has to be involved. And
Well,
so
we
if
have
it
to
doesn't
overreact at some
go, if it
point, right?
doesn't
Yeah.
end in a win, there's going to be, ridiculous takes on what it all means, which is not very much
Right.
other than to give you a sense of where you are at the end of October. But that can be useful. I mean,
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of upside and no real downside.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm actually very excited. Season ticket holder. You rarely, you oftentimes have to just wait till the Big Ten season to get any good games. And now we've got two great non-conference games, Arkansas and Duke, coming into the
At
Breslin, which is
Breslin,
going to be
yeah.
fantastic. Yeah. That's going
Yeah,
to be really great. I'm very
you
excited.
know, it's funny because I do really lament the kind of dying off of the traditional feast week tournaments. I mean, I think that's an era that was rapidly closing. MSU was in a two-game event in Fort Myers, I believe, the AccuSure
Yeah.
thing. But it's not like those tournaments they're typically in,
No.
and they're dying off. But one thing that does seem to be happening, at least in fits and starts, is the return of on-campus home and homes, which is something Tom Izzo's wanted to happen for years. He just ran into opposition. Most
Right. So you had
opposing
to do the
coaches
multi-tournament events.
yeah,
Right.
most opposing coaches didn't want to play, even if it was only one out every 2 years, they didn't want to play road games against true road games against high
Yeah.
major opponents. So they preferred to play on neutral floors, at those feast week tournaments. But we seem to be getting back, and you're right, MSU to have two games of that caliber. That's something. And then they got a bunch of other ones. So it's going
Yeah.
to be a lively November and December, I can tell you that.
Yeah. We're going to be very excited. So we'll bring you all that action. Of course, remember, if you on YouTube, you get notifications. We will be live after those post games for those games. Usually after I get back home, so it's like an hour delayed, but we'll get that taken care of. So anyway, I think we'll wrap it up there. We'll be back with more stuff. So stay tuned. So until next time, the Final Four is not on the schedule. Go green.